Greetings and salutations, my dear audience. This is Joe St. Egg Benedictus coming at you with another video regarding my sabbatical journey, and I hope you'll journey with me as I give a shout out to my pal Mike and to all the visionaries and mystics out there. Thank you for joining me. Over this next year, I'll be releasing a few videos related to my sabbatical project coming up. My sabbatical will incorporate a study of cosmology and cover over 8,000 miles across country to see God's natural wonders and grandeur, observatories and planetariums and various things in order to study God's creation and how that connects with our revitalization as a congregation and as a ministry. But how did it start? How did I come up with that idea of cosmology? What led me to the idea that it was Psalm 19, which says that the heavens declare the glories of God and speaks to the revival of the heart? Is something that caught my attention. Well, this is how it started. At the beginning, I was not entirely sure why I had so much trouble coming up with a subject for my sabbatical, a point of study. But I knew I had to be competitive in order to apply for the Lilly Clergy Endowment Renewal Program, which grants pastors and congregations the needed funds to go on sabbatical for about 12 weeks. And I know that I needed to meet some of their requirements and some of my personal requirements in order to receive the resources in order to take the sabbatical. One, I needed to study something, anything. And at this point in my life, it's just really tricky to find something that I'm really passionate about enough to carry me for a 12-week trip away from my family. The other thing that I had to fulfill was the requirement that the Renewal Endowment organization states, which is that I had to study something that makes my heart sing. That is the language that they use in the grant application. And thirdly, I knew I needed to study something that was unique and competitive, but sustainable. Something that was not just a shot in the dark to win a grant, but something that would keep my heart singing for a long time. Originally applied for this grant in 2019, and at that time I was going to study Baptist origins and history. It brought energy to me and my family because we were going to go as a family to visit far-off places such as the United Kingdom and Israel and Ireland. And at that time my children were smaller, so they were excited to see places familiar to them in the world of Harry Potter and Shakespeare and J.R.R. Tolkien. But unfortunately I had to withdraw my application to the grant because of COVID. So here I am, over 3 years later, and those dreams were off the table. I don't want to travel overseas. Baptist history is no longer a sustainable subject in which I'm interested. And my heart no longer sings at the prospect of sifting through old Baptist sermons and letters and histories of my spiritual ancestors. Besides that, my children are all grown up, and they're all in college and getting married and moving on, and they have no intentions of traveling with me anytime soon. This was a point of grief for my wife and me. And the reason why I applied to that grant in 2019 was to try to capture that energy and that heart of the family before they moved into college and other life things. So when I revisited the thought and the deep need for sabbatical in this season of life, since I had yet to take a sabbatical nearly 20 years of ministry, I really struggled with the topic and subject of study. You know, when you work tirelessly in ministry with very little fuel to give to other ventures in life, things really become stale and stagnant. What was going to make my heart sing? I didn't even have the stamina or emotional bandwidth to sing at all. In 2023, there came a distinct turning point. It consisted of a very simple daughter and daddy date with my daughter. We went to eat somewhere, maybe it was Casey's on the beach, or perhaps Chick-fil-A. And she asked a very simple question to make conversation. Dad, if you were to live in a fictional world, such as Middle-earth or Oz, where would you live? And without skipping a beat, I said, the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. When I heard the words come out of my mouth, I felt, and perhaps for the first time in a long time, my heart leap. And for the next month, I couldn't get the thought out of my mind. It hit me that my love for Star Trek, at least for the time being, connected with sabbatical. And I thought about other questions related to that. How do I explore the stars? How do I invest meaningful time understanding the origins of the universe? How do I enter more fully in the heart and person of God with a new opportunity to learn about God's majestic creation? A subject that has captivated my imagination even when I was little. In fact, I most likely, and I suppose believe in God, Not because of the initial particular church experience I had, though that was part of it, but because of the grandeur of the stars. I always found myself, like Captain Picard, looking up to the stars, wondering what was out there. And that's when I really felt the presence of God. So what better way to study God's great cosmos and creation than to devote a sabbatical to it? I started poring over my library, harnessed the energy of this volcanic emotion I was having, some avenue of learning that would help me to frame my intentions for sabbatical. And my first place to look was in the literature of my favorite author, Barbara Brown Taylor, whose observations on life, from the significance of darkness to reflections on how wondrous mosquitoes are, always captivated my imagination. I finally arrived at her brief monograph on science and faith called The Luminous Web, and read the essay, The Evolution of Praise. In it, she moves readers from the very seed of the universe with all of its power and glory and matter to a chorus of voices that gives glory to the Creator. Speaking on the origins of the universe, Barbara Brown Taylor writes, "When I survey this 15 billion-year-old history, which has more good guesses in it than hard facts, it is difficult to miss the most stunning miracle of creation, that in us, the universe became conscious. We are the first creatures to articulate the motion of the planets. We are the first creatures to discern the commonality of all life. For those of us who believe God is the source from which we all arose, we are the first creatures to say so out loud. God may well prefer the sound of spring peepers, but I have to believe there was joy in heaven when the first human being looked at the sky and said, 'Thank you for this.'" There it was. In just one short essay, I had my subject and nearly my proposal. How was I going to understand my part in this vast creation with all of its mysteries and miracles? How was I going to translate this new inspiration for learning about God's creation while inviting my congregation to come along with me on an adventure that sweeps the universe? And for the next year, I've been hard at work trying to do just that in writing my grant proposal. It isn't perfect, hopefully good enough to get a grant award, but it is a start. It is an invitation. And the next season, I hope, is one in which I'll reach for the stars to, as Reverend John Claypool used to say about preaching, go out into the world and report back on where God is at work.